The horizon bleeds crimson, a gash torn by the sun's reluctant rise over the endless steppe. Barbarossa's shadow lingers like a fever dream. German panzers churn the black earth into muddied graves, their treads grinding bones of villages long silenced. Stukas scream from the heavens, black crosses glinting like scythes, diving to reap the harvest of Soviet despair. Smoke coils from shattered rail lines, from farmsteads reduced to ash-fingered skeletons. The air hums with the metallic tang of cordite and the low moan of wind through barbed wire, carrying whispers of the fallen. Mothers clutching babes in root cellars, partisans vanishing into birch thickets. Soldiers whose eyes reflect the Volga's distant gleam, now dulled by defeat. In the command dugout near the Don River bend, a cluster of Red Army officers huddles over a map scarred by cigarette burns and bloodstains. General Vasily Chuikov, his face a map of its own, furrowed like plowed fields under siege, traces the German advance with a grease pencil finger. The Caucasus oil fields flicker in his mind's eye, black gold that could choke the Reich's engines or fuel Stalin's fury. Chuikov, voice gravel rough, edged with exhaustion. They push like wolves at a dying fire. Stalingrad holds by threads, our threads. Luftwaffe owns the day. We need the night. A murmur ripples through the tent, maps rustling like dry leaves. Outside, a Samoyed dog howls at the paling stars, its cry swallowed by the rumble of distant artillery. The officers exchange glances, heavy with the weight of a war that devours men like locusts. But one figure stands apart, her silhouette sharp against the lantern's glow. Marina Raskova, aviation pioneer, the woman who once stitched Russia to its edges in a record-shattering flight. Her eyes, dark as Siberian peat, burn with a fire unquenched by the frost of 41's rout. She is no ghost in this den of tobacco and testosterone. Her presence a quiet thunder, her uniform tailored not for parade but for the fray. Raskova steps forward, her boots, oversized, borrowed from a male pilot, crunching on the frozen dirt floor. The room stills. She was Stalin's Amelia Earhart, the navigator who mapped the motherland's wild heart in '38, landing her DBA craft in a blizzard to prove women could conquer skies as surely as men. Now widowed by the war's maw, her husband lost to a Messerschmitt's bite, she carries vengeance like a lodestone. Raskova, laced with the cadence of Ural's winds. Comrades, the day is theirs, their eagles, their iron birds. But the night is vast, and it hungers. Give me wings for my sisters, not the steel beasts of the VVS, but something quieter. We will be the whisper that wakes the dead. An all-women's regiment, bombers. We will drop hell from the dark and they will learn to fear the hush. The officers lean in, skeptical brows arching like frozen boughs. One, a colonel with a monocle scarred by shrapnel, scoffs softly, his breath fogging the air. Colonel, women in bombers? Against the Luftwaffe's wolves? You'd have us arm schoolgirls with slingshots, Marina Mikhailovna. The front bleeds men already. Trained eagles, not sparrows. Raskova's lips curve, not in smile but in the arc of a scimitar. She unfolds a sketch, crude lines of a biplane, ancient as folklore, its wings splayed like a moth's. Raskova, sparrows? We flew Trans-Siberia in storms that swallowed mountains. Sexism is the only enemy we've yet to bomb. Give us Po-2s, the crop dusters they mock as relics. Plywood and linen, silent as snowfall. No radios to betray us, no parachutes to tempt surrender. Engines off at glide, we drop like shadows. Their flak guns will chase ghosts. Their sentries will curse the stars. Chukikov rubs his chin, eyes narrowing. The tent flap stirs. A courier bursts in, snow-dusted, bearing a wire from the Kremlin. Stalin's seal gleams waxen red. The general reads, his face unreadable as permafrost. Chuikov, low, almost reverent. The Falcons. He pauses, glancing at Raskova. 3 regiments, all women, approved. Train them at Engels, make them sing. The word spreads like contraband samizdat, from Moscow's marble halls to the kolkhoz fields of Ukraine, from Leningrad's besieged bakeries to the Ural's forge fires. A call crackles over radios, whispers through partisan networks. Sisters of the air, rise. Wings await the bold. By autumn's iron grip, 261 answer. Pilots from gliding clubs, navigators from polar surveys, mechanics from tractor factories. They converge on Engels airfield, a windswept plain south of Saratov, where the Volga mirrors the moon like a shattered looking glass. The steppe exhales frost, a breath that bites through greatcoats. Tents sprout like toadstools after rain, canvas flaps snapping in the gale, guy wires humming requiems. The recruits arrive in sputters, A gas truck belching fumes deposits a dozen from Moscow, their faces pale as birch bark, eyes wide with the audacity of youth. Another hauls farm girls from the Donbass, hands calloused from scythes, now clutching duffels stuffed with woolens and wonder. Among them, Nadezhda Popova, 20, a slip of fury with chestnut braids pinned under her ushanka. Her village near Donetsk lies in cinders. Nazis torched it in 41, her brother Dmitry bayoneted for hiding a radio. She flies not for glory, but for the ghost of his laugh echoing in wheat fields. I'll drop enough fire to light his way home, she thinks, fingers tracing the scar on her palm from a pitchfork's edge. Nadia alights, boots sinking into mud that sucks like grief. Nearby, a cluster of PO2 biplanes huddles under tarps, relics from the Civil War era, their fuselages patched with linen and doped varnish, wings braced by wire that sings in the wind. No armored cockpits, no self-sealing tanks, just open-air tubs for two, powered by a 110-horsepower radial that coughs like an old smoker's lung. Crop dusters turned reapers, their underbellies slung for 220-pound bombs like eggs in a wicker basket. A whistle pierces the dusk. Yevdokiya Bershanskaya strides from the command tent, her frame ironclad in a leather flight jacket 2 sizes too large. At 32, she is the anvil upon which this regiment will be forged. Former test pilot, mother to a daughter safe in Kuibyshev, her gaze a forge fire that tempers doubt to steel. 260 souls snap to attention. A sea of faces, rosy-cheeked students, weathered kolkhoznitsi, widows with eyes like chipped flint. Bershanskaya, voice carrying like a siren's call over the wind. You are the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. Not because you are women, because you are warriors. The men fly by day and die in light. We own the velvet dark. These Po2s are no Messerschmitts, but they are ours. Silent, slow, sisters to the moth. Learn them, love them. And when the engine dies, you glide. You become the night. The women murmur, a ripple of awe and apprehension. Mechanics like Irina Sevastyanova, broad-shouldered from Siberian mines, circle the plains, fingers tracing seams, inhaling the scent of varnish and aviation dope, sharp as pine resin. Irina lost her fiancé to a U-boat. Now, her wrench is her wedding band. Training begins at dawn's thief light, but it's the nights that carve them. 40 degrees bites like wolves, the air so cold it shatters on the tongue. They drill in mock raids. Engines throttled to idle, planes lumbering into the black, then cut. The propeller stutters, windmills to a halt. Silence descends, profound as a confessional. Only the wires faint keen, the canvases sigh against the gale. At 600 feet, they nose down, wooden control sticks slick with frost-gloved hands. Bombs, dummies of sand and scrap, thud into snowdrifts below, marking invisible targets. Rail yards, ammo dumps, the Wehrmacht's iron spine. Nadia pairs with Rufina Gasheva, a navigator whose maps are etched in memory, not paper. Rufina, 19, from Leningrad's siege shadows, plots by stars. Polaris her lodestar, Cassiopeia her compass. In the rear cockpit, she hunches over a drift site, wind whipping her scarf like a banner. Rufina, shouting over the slipstream, then whispering as the engine fades. Wind sheer at 10 degrees. Left rudder Nadia. We're ghosts now. Feel it? The broom sweep. The Po2 stalls, wings quivering like aspen leaves, then bites air in a glide that whispers whoosh, a sound like skirts brushing floorboards in a darkened hall. No radar pings them. Their wood and fabric mock the FUMG's electronic eyes. They skim treetops, the earth rising like a lover's breath until wheels kiss snow in a puff of crystals. Back in tents aglow with kerosene lamps, they thaw. Frostbitten toes blistered in felt boots stuffed with rags, cheeks raw as a braided silk. Laughter crackles communal, a defiance against the dark. Tea steeps in samovars, black as the Volga's depths, spiked with tails. Larisa Litvinova, a navigator with ink-stained fingers bandaging a mechanic's hand. They call these crates sewing machines. Let them. We'll stitch their lines with fire. Larisa, orphaned by famine, navigates not just skies but souls, her calm a balm for the green ones who weep in their bunks. Sisterhood blooms here, fragile as the linen wings, shared cigarettes, mended gloves, confessions whispered under wool blankets. We are not wives or daughters tonight, Nadia reflects, staring at the tent's sagging roof. We are the storm's daughters. Raskova paces the field, her shadow long as doubt. She flies lead sorties herself, her DB-3 mothballed for these humble birds, proving the glide's grace. But whispers reach her, from the VVS brass sneers of hysterical hens, from the recruits, fears that bloom like mold in damp boots. She gathers them one eve, under a sky pricked with stars like bullet holes. Raskova, arms outstretched as if embracing the void. They doubt us because they fear us. Men build empires on noise, tanks that roar, guns that bellow. Our empire is silence. Cut the engine, and the world listens. You will drop not bombs, but nightmares. The Nazis will name you witches, Nachthexen, and in that scorn find your crown. The women nod, fire kindling in bellies chilled by wind. Weeks bleed to months, mock glides evolve to live drops, incendiaries fizzing harmless in the snow. The Po2's quirks they master. The propensity to swing on landing, the open cockpit's lash of sleet, the way frost rims goggles like funeral lace. Bonds harden. Nadia and Rufina inseparable as warp and weft. Irina wrenching engines till her palms bleed, singing folk ditties of Cossack brides who rode to war. By spring's hesitant thaw, 1942 yields to the regiment's rhythm. Raskova departs for her own command, the 587th, but her spirit lingers, a tailwind. Bershanskaya assumes the helm, her tent a borrowed sanctum of maps and manifestos. The first real orders crackle, Stalingrad calls, its cauldron boiling with Paulus's Sixth Army. The witches will answer, not with thunder but with the night's own breath. The squadron assembles, 18 Po2s, bellies heavy with fury, Fab hundreds nestled like sleeping serpents. Engines cough to life, a chorus of reluctant beasts then taxi into line. Nadia climbs into the front cockpit of number 7, wood creaking under her slight frame. Rufina settles aft, her plotboard a talisman. The field falls away, they climb sluggish into the ink, Volga's gleam fading below. At 2,000 feet the signal throttles back. One by one, propellers bite air and still. Silence envelops them, profound, intimate. Wind whispers over struts, canvas fluttering like prayer flags. The glide begins, 600 feet to target, a rail junction choked with Goering's supply trains. Below, German campfires wink like fallen stars, oblivious. Nadia's hands, gloved and steady, ease the stick. The whoosh builds, a broom sweep through dead air, the stall warnings hiss a siren's lure. Rufina's voice drifts forward, soft as snowfall. Rufina bombs away in 3, the latches spring, payloads tumble, vanishing into void. Thuds echo faint, a kiss of earth, followed by blooms of orange silent at first, then roaring as fuel ignites. Railcars crumple, shadows dancing in pyre light, tracers arc blind from the ground, lace holes stitching the dark, but the witches are gone. Ghosts reclaiming sky, they bank east, engines reborn and sputter, limping home lace-holed and laughing. Frost rims their lashes, the metallic tang of unspent fear lingers on tongues. But in their eyes a revelation glimmers. The night is no adversary. It is ally, cloak, kin. They cut the engines into silence. They didn't know the night would claim them as kin. The canvas walls sag under a patina of rime, the air thick with the steam of breath and the acrid bite of boot polish. Kerosene lanterns swing from crossbeams, casting shadows that dance like specters at a forbidden ball. Elongated fingers reaching for the women sprawled on their cots, faces illuminated in the amber glow. The 588th Night Bomber Regiment, raw as unearthed ore, settles into its vigil. Duffels yawn open, spilling forth talismans, a locket with a faded portrait of a mother in a Moscow shawl, a dog-eared photo of a sweetheart lost to the purge, a braided cord from a village chapel's icon. The wind outside moans through guy wires, a low dirge that harmonizes with the crackle of a pot-bellied stove, its iron belly devouring peat like a gluttonous god. Nadezhda Popova perches on her bunk's edge, knees drawn to chest. Her flight jacket, a cast-off from the men's depot, sleeves rolled to free calloused wrists, draped over shoulders still humming from the day's drill. At 20, she is all edges, cheekbones sharp as scythes, eyes green as the dawn's flooded meadows before the Nazis scorched them black. Her brother Dmitri's ghost lingers in the tent's chill corners, his final letter creased in her pocket. Fly high, little bird. Bring the thunder home. She hasn't flown thunder yet, only dummies that thud harmless into snow, but the fire in her veins simmers, fed by the enlistment call that snared her from a gliding club in Voronezh. They burned our fields, she thinks, tracing the letter's folds. I'll sow theirs with stars. Across the aisle, Rufina Gasheva kneels before a makeshift altar of sorts, a crate draped with a red kerchief, topped by a samovar that wheezes like an asthmatic aunt. Rufina, 19, and wiry as a birch sapling, pours tea with ritual precision, the steam curling like incense. From Leningrad, where the siege's hunger carved hollows in her cheeks, she navigates by more than maps, by the pull of unseen currents, the way a star's wink can chart a soul's drift. Her fingers, ink-stained from plotting polar routes in a factory's dim light, tremble not from cold but from the audacity of it all, leaving a typewriter for a drift site, a desk for the dark. Rufina, handing Nadia a tin mug, voice soft as fresh-fallen sleet. To the sisters who flew before us, to Raskova's shadow, stretching long over this frozen nursery. Drink deep, Nadia. It'll thaw the doubts. Nadia sips, the brew scalding, laced with a splash of contraband vodka that blooms warmth in her chest like a furtive sunrise. Around them, the tent pulses with life. Larisa Litvinova, 21, navigator with a poet's lilt to her tongue, braids wild hair while reciting Pushkin under her breath. The storm clouds gather, but the heart flies free. Orphaned by the Holodomor, she enlisted from a Kiev library, books her only lovers until now. Nearby, Irina Sevastianova, the mechanic broad as a Volga barge, sharpens tools by lamplight, her laughter a bellow that scatters the gloom. Siberian-born, she traded mine picks for prop wrenches after a U-boat claimed her Alexei. Her hands, scarred like ancient bark, coax engines from tantrums to purrs. The door flap bursts inward, admitting a gust that snuffs a lantern and scatters papers like startled birds. Yevdokiya Bershanskaya enters, snowflakes melting on her fur-lined cap, her presence a lodestone drawing all eyes. At 32, she is the regiment's spine, test pilot turned taskmaster, her uniform hanging loose on a frame honed by pre-war loops over the Black Sea. Mother to a 5-year-old hidden in Kuibishev's kinder cradle, she carries no photographs. Her talisman is the iron star pinned to her breast, earned in a 39 crash that kissed death but spared her for this. Bershanskaya, stamping snow from boots, voice a whip crack tempered by warmth. Lights out in 10, witches in waiting. Tomorrow, we dance with the devil's breath, crosswinds at 30 knots, glides from 800 feet. Who falters freezes, but who flies? She claims the stars. The women straighten, a murmur of assent rippling like wind over wheat. Bershanskaya's gaze sweeps them, lingering on the new ones. The farm girl from Tambov who weeps for her cow left to wolves, the Moscow typist whose fingers blister on the stick. Scorn has dogged them since the call, VVS officers dubbing them Bolshevik broodmares, Politburo whispers of vanity flights for Stalin's showgirls. But here in this tense hush, zeal kindles. They are no longer daughters bartered for dowries or laborers chained to looms. They are brides to the broomstick, vows sealed in frost and fury. The world is a monochrome dream, the steppe shrouded in fog that clings like a shroud. Dawn delays, the sky a bruise above the horizon. Potus huddle under frost-laced tarps, their wings etched with rime like filigree on a dowager's fan. Mechanics swarm them, Irina at the fore, her breath pluming as she drains oil sumps, the liquid black as sin, checking for the night's sabotage. A strut's hidden crack, a wire's sly fray. The Po-2 demands devotion. Its Shvetsov M11 engine, a 5-cylinder wheeze, balks at the cold, coughing revolutions until coaxed with ether squirts and prayers muttered in dialect. Nadia and Rufina approach number 7, their assigned steed, a biplane with a cockpit like an open claw, seats of wicker and willow lashed to a plywood spine. No armor plates to blunt the flak's kiss, no radios to chatter betrayal, only a speaking tube snaking betwixt cockpits, a megaphone for voices lost in the slipstream. Nadia climbs the wing ladder, her felt boots, stuffed with rags against the chill, slipping on ice-sheathed struts. The canvas sighs under her weight, doped fabric taut as drumskin smelling of glue and ghosts. Nadia, settling into the forepit, buckling harness of frayed leather. She feels alive today, Rufina, like a mare scenting storm. Rufina vaults aft, her drift sight a brass oracle slung over knees. She unfurls a map, creased silk, edges blackened by lantern soot, tracing routes with a stub of pencil. Stars still prick the vault above, the bear's tail a hook for the soul, Orion's belt a ammunition line. Rufina, through the tube, words echoing hollow. Alive or eager to bite. Remember, throttle to idle at approach, then cut. The glide is trust. Trust the wind won't betray, the dark won't devour. The squadron forms. 18 planes in ragged line, pilots and navigators a tapestry of resolve. Braids tucked under helmets, scarves knotted against the lash. Bershanskaya mounts her own Po-2, lead bird number 1, her signal flare arcing green into the gloom. Engines snarl awake, a staggered chorus that shatters the silence, blue smoke belching from exhausts like dragon's breath. They taxi, wheels churning ruts frozen hard as iron, then lumber skyward, slow climbs, 60 knots max, wings flexing like weary sails. At 1,500 feet, the formation scatters into pairs, ghosts in the gray. Training target, a mock rail yard etched in snowdrifts 2 versts east, flagged with rags dyed crimson for Goering's trains. Nadia levels off, the altimeter's needle quivering like a diviner's rod. Wind probes the open cockpit, fingers icy and insistent, tugging at goggles fogged with breath. Bershanskaya, crackling over Aldous lamp flashes, Morse staccato heartbeat, cut now. Glide, become the whisper. Nadia eases the throttle, the propeller hacks, windmill stills. Silence crashes down, profound as submersion. The only sounds the whoosh of air over wires, a broom sweep hush that raises hackles on the neck. The PO2 stalls gently, nose dipping into descent, speed bleeding to 40 knots. Rufina's voice drifts forward, intimate in the tube. Rufina left 5 degrees, target at 11 o'clock. Feel her settle, like a leaf on the Volga. Bombs in 10. The world tilts, earth rising reluctant from the mist, snowfields veined with black earth, the mock yard's rags fluttering like surrender flags. Nadia's hands, numb in mittens, nudge the stick, gentle as if stroking a skittish foal. The stall horn whines, a witch's cackle, then fades as they skim at 200 feet, shadows among shadows. Latches clunk, dummies cascade, sandbags bursting in puffs below, marking hits that scar the white. Tracers? None yet. This is rehearsal. But imagination supplies them. Green lances groping blind, flax pom-poms stutter chasing phantoms. A gust bucks them, canvas cracking like musket fire. Nadia counters with rudder, the plane swaying like a cradle in gale. Homeward, engines reignite in fits, the sputter a laugh at death's expense. Thaw's false promise yields to true winter's vice. 50 grugul, the air a blade that slices lungs. The mess reeks of borscht thickened with sawdust, black bread doled like diamonds. The women cluster at trestle tables, faces chapped raw, lips cracked as parched earth. Laughter erupts sporadic, defiant sparks in the dim. Arena regaling a circle with tales of coaxing a seized piston free with a miner's curse and a hot poker. Arena ming the wrench's twist, voice booming. She fought like a demon, spit oil like bile. But I whispered, sister, we're bound for the same hell. Yield. And she purred, just like that. Larissa sketches caricatures on napkins, Po-2s with besoms for tails, Luftwaffe aces fleeing on broomsticks. The scorn from without seeps in, a supply clerk's mutter overheard, lipstick legions, more fit for ballet than bombs. But here it fuels them, zeal defies the jeers, they drill till dawn, bodies aching, spirits soaring. Bonds weave tight, Nadia shares Dmitri's letter with Rufina under blankets, tears freezing on lashes. Larissa teaches star lore to the farm girls, constellations as allies in the void. One night, after a glide gone awry, Nadia's Po-2 icing mid-descent, forcing a wheels-up skid, doubt creeps. In the tent, she huddles, mittens clasped. Nadia whispers the dark, what if the hush fails us? What if we're just moths to their flame? Rufina stirs, hand finding Nadia's in the chill. Rufina, then we burn bright. But the glide? It's faith, Nadia. Starry-eyed, yes, but eyes wide to the wind's whim. We trust because we must, because in that silence we are free. Bershanskaya overhears, entering with a lantern that blooms gold. She kneels, rare vulnerability cracking her steel. Voice low, threaded with memory. I lost a wingman in 39, spun in over the sea, no chute to kiss the waves. But she taught me, the dark isn't empty. It's full of us. Your glides aren't tricks, they're tributes. To Raskova's fire, to the sisters who will follow. Scorn the doubters. Embrace the black. The regiment hardens through January's iron. Cross-country hops in blizzards. Engines fed preheated oil from cauldrons. Night instrument drills blindfolded. Hands guided by feel alone. Losses mount. Not to foes but frost. Toes blackened. Claimed by gangrene. Girls airlifted weeping to surgeons. Yet fervor swells. Letters from the front praise their trials. Stalin's wire, lauding, falcons of the veil. Sisterhood solidifies. Mending runs in stockings, sharing lip salve flavored with raspberry dreams. Harmonies rising in folk songs of river maidens who lured czars to watery graves. By February's end, the raw recruits are witches nascent. Glides fluid as breath, whooshes harmonious as choral hush. They trust the stall's kiss, the propeller's obedient death. The Po-2, once relic, becomes extension, canvas pulsing with their heartbeats, wires humming their hymns. Full orb silvering the snow, the squadron lifts for its penultimate trial, a 200-verst round-robin, targets phantom but paths perilous. Nadia and Rufina aloft, engine cut at the Volga's bend, glide a eternity over frozen flats. Below, wolf packs shadow unseen, but above, stars confide secrets. The whoosh envelops them, intimate, eternal. Rufina, threading her whisper, listen. The night sings back. Nadia smiles into the wind, doubt thawed to determination. They are no longer brides timid at the altar. They are the storm's own, veils lifted, wings unfurled. They thought the dark hid only horrors, until they became the horror's heart. The sun dips reluctant into the Volga's maw, painting the steppe in strokes of bruised plum and ash. Spring feigns a thaw, mud pools like spilled blood underfoot, birches drip reluctant tears from icicle beards. But the wind remembers winter, keening through the airfield's skeletal hangars with a bite that promises reprisal. Po-2s line the field like dowagers at a wake, their biplane wings folded not in defeat but in patient vigil, fuselages patched with linen squares where frost has gnawed the dope. These are no sleek Il-2 Sturmoviks, armored behemoths belching fire by day. These are relics, born in the 1920s as timid trainers, crop dusters that sprinkled seed over kolkhoz furrows, plywood frames light as a whisper, canvas skins taut with the scent of banana oil and regret, 110 horsepower to lift 2 souls and a bellyful of vengeance into the indifferent black. Irina Sevastianova circles number 7 like a midwife at labor's edge, her miner's hands, knuckles swollen from Siberian picks, tracing the undercarriage. The Po-2 groans under her touch, a creak of protest from struts rusted at the joints, wires humming faint as harp strings in the breeze. Irina, 24 and built like the barges she once lashed on the Yenisei, enlisted after her Alexei's U-boat grave swallowed him whole. Now her wrench is widow's vow. She kneels, peering into the engine cowl, where the Shvetsov M11 slumbers, its 5 cylinders a nest of grudges. Irina, muttering to the plain voice gravel and grace, you old crone, you've dusted fields from here to Vladivostok. Now, dust their bones, but yield no secrets to the cold. Oil her veins, sweeten her breath. A supply truck grinds to halt nearby, disgorging crates stamped with faded Cyrillic. Polikarpov Po-2, agricultural variant. The drivers, bearded VVS ground crew, faces etched with the day's disdain, unload with grunts and glances askance. One, a sergeant with a Luftwaffe tattoo inked in mockery over his forearm, spits tobacco juice into the mud. Sergeant, to his mate, loud enough for the wind to carry. Falcons? More like fledglings in feather bows. Give these hens Po-2s, they'll flutter into the drink-first squall. Stalin's jest. Lipstick on bombers, skirts over struts. Let the men fly the real birds, these'll bake bread in the cockpits. His laughter barks, echoed by the crew, a chorus of condescension that slithers into the women's ears like smoke from a neighbor's chimney. Sexist slings these. Barbs honed on the whetstone of tradition, flung from Moscow's mahogany desks where generals puff bellamores and ponder women's place as footnotes in the great patriotic's epic. The VVS brass, safe in Saratov's bunkers, wire Engels with suggestions, lighter loads for delicate frames, no night ops till proficiency proves parity. But Bershanskaya shreds the memos, her command tent a bonfire of bureaucracy. Nadezhda Popova overhears from the wing root, where she oils control cables, her braids tucked into a grease-smeared cap. The words sting like salt in frost crack, but she straightens, green eyes flashing birch fire. Delicate, she thinks, fingers slick with lubricant that smells of almonds and anger. I've stitched my brother's shroud with bayonet rents. These wings, they'll be my needle now. Beside her, Larisa Litvinova pauses mid-stitch on a torn aileron cover, her navigator's hands, fine as a calligrapher's, threading needle through canvas with the precision of plotting Cassiopeia's arc. Larisa, low, to Nadia, needle pausing like a held breath. Let them sling mud. Our slings? Bombs that sing in the dark. Remember Raskova's flight. 38, across the taiga, skeptics sneering till she landed in their laps. Were her echo, Nadia. Outdated? No, unyielding. The women exchange nods, a silent pact sealed in the creak of wood. The Po-2's birth pangs are manifold. Engines that seize in sub-zero, demanding preheats from smudge pots that belch soot like offended dragons, landing gear that folds like a drunkard's knees on uneven turf. Cockpits open to the heavens lash, where sleet stings like shrapnel and wind howls elegies through the speaking tube. No guns to bite back, only the glide's guile, the engine's elective silence. Mechanics improvise. Irina rigs baffles from tin cans to muffle the props idle, turning the cough to a kitten's purr. Others dope fresh linen over bullet test holes from training mishaps. The varnishes gloss a defiant gleam. Lantern light pools on maps unfurled like oracle entrails, pins marking the Eastern Front's festering wound. Stalingrad's rubble a red star, the dawn's bend a blue vein pulsing with retreat. Yevdokiya Bershanskaya hunches over the table, her iron star catching the flame's flicker, face a mask of calculation, cheekbones high as Siberian ridges, eyes gray as storm clouds over the steppe. At 32, she has looped the Black Sea in prototypes that bucked like unbroken stallions. Now, she molds maidens into marauders from a desk of splintered pine. A courier salutes, handing a flimsy, first combat deployment, Stalingrad sector, rail interdiction. 15 sorties, moonless nights. Bershanskaya's lips thin, not in fear but in the arc of a falcon's stoop. Bershanskaya. To the empty tent, folding the order like a gauntlet. Outdated wings for the newest wrath. Let the Luftwaffe laugh, till the whoosh wakes them weeping. She steps out, whistle trilling assembly. The squadron converges, 23 crews now. Attrition's toll and frostbitten evacuees, faces alight with the zeal of converts. Rufina Gasheva clutches her star chart, rolled tight as a talisman, her Leningrad pallor flushed with purpose. The void isn't foe, she reflects, it's canvas. We'll paint it with their panic. Bershanskaya, pacing the line, voice a blade wrapped in velvet. Sisters, the front calls, not with fanfare, but with the night's nod. Stalingrad burns by day, by eve, we quench their supply with our hush. These potus, they creak like grandmother's joints, slow as molasses in January. But slow is sly, cut the throttle, and you're unseen. Wood fools radar, linen mocks the moon. Glide from 600 feet, drop your eggs, and ghost away. No heroics, only hauntings. Murmurs swell, excitement laced with the sour tang of nerves. A young pilot, Marina, 18 from a Smolensk glider club, fidgets with her harness. What if the crate betrays? But Larissa's hand on her shoulder steadies, a navigator's anchor. The squadron lifts from a forward strip near the Volga's elbow, engines a muffled mutter to evade prowling Ju-88s. 18 Po-2s claw skyward, sluggish ascents that test the pilot's patience. Nadia at the stick of number 7, Rufina aft, the air thick with the canvas's sigh and the faint, acrid whiff of incendiary fuses. Below, Stalingrad's embers pulse like a dying heart. Paulus's 6th Army hunkered in ruins, their railheads choked with panzers and powder, oblivious to the harpies gathering. At 1,800 feet, the formation fans into V of pairs, a skein of geese turned reapers. Wind from the south carries the front's reek, burnt rubber, gangrenous flesh, the Volga's fishy rot. Nadia's goggles fog briefly, she wipes with a gloved thumb, heart a drum in her throat. For Dmitri, she thinks, for the wheat that won't wave again. Bershanskaya's flare arcs, green for go. Throttles ease, props hack reluctant, windmill to stillness. Silence descends, velvet and vast, broken only by the whoosh, a broom sweep through dead air, the wires keen like distant flutes. The Po-2 transforms, no longer crate but specter, stalling soft into glide, nose dipping toward the earth that rises reluctant from the dark. Rufina, through the tube, voice hushed as confession. Target at 2 o'clock, rail marshalling yard 3 versts. Flak nests at bearing 270. Steady, Nadia. Feel her kiss the wind. The world contracts, stars above and different jury. Below the faint glow of German braziers, sentries' cigarettes winking like fallen embers. Tracers? Not yet. But imagination supplies the symphony. The pom-pom's spiteful cough, shells blooming black in the black. Nadia's hands, slick with sweat despite the chill, nudge the stick. The stall horn hisses, a witch's sibilant laugh, then quiets as they skim at 300 feet, shadows skimming treetops that claw like skeletal fingers. The yard emerges, a iron tangle lit by hooded lanterns, boxcars bloated with shells bound for the Caucasus. Rufina's drift sight gleams brass in the star glow. Her call comes crisp. Rufina, bombs away, now. Latches clatter, 4 Fab 50s tumble free, vanishing into void with a whisper. Seconds stretch eternal, then thuds, muffled as footsteps in snow, followed by blooms of hellfire. orange tongues licking the dark, boxcars crumpling in accordion screams, secondary blasts birthing pyres that paint the underbelly of clouds. Alarms wail faint below, a keening too late, sentries scatter like roaches, their shouts lost in the conflagration's roar. Chaos erupts, flak guns grope blind, tracers stitching green lace upward, pom-poms stuttering at phantoms. A shell whispers past number 7's tail, close enough to singe canvas, Irina's patches tested in baptism. The Po-2 bucks, but Nadia's touch is lovers. Gentle rudder, easing into climb as engines reignite and sputter, the Kaffa scoff at pursuit. Exhilaration threading her whisper. We kissed them, Rufina. Fire for their frost. Homeward, the squadron limps. One Po-2 limps on a shredded aileron, another trails smoke from a lucky hit, but all alight on the Volga strip, wheels kissing mud in puffs of mist. Mechanics swarm, Irina foremost, wrench flashing as she tallies the toll. Lace holes like lacework, a strut bent like a drunk's spine. But the debrief tent crackles with triumph. 12 hits confirmed by partisans' pet. Wires Goering's lifeline kinked. Word spreads insidious. Wehrmacht outposts buzz with the uncanny. Unseen bombers, silent as sin, dropping death from the devil's apron strings. Luftwaffe aces, grounded by the night's whim, pour over logs. No radar echo. Wood witches? A diarist in the 16th Panzer scratches. The dames from the dark, Nachthexen. They steal sleep like thieves. Better the Stukas scream than this hush. Back at Engels, the women thaw in the mess. Frost-bitten cheeks rosy. Laughter bubbling like kvass from a shaken keg. Larissa sketches the raid's arc on a napkin, stars as witnesses. Marina, the novice, weeps not in fear but release. I flew the whoosh. I am kin to it now. Yet the pangs persist. A crash in fog claims a green pilot 2 nights hence, her Po-2 splintering into the steppe like a broken promise, crew hauled numb from the wreck. Morning is swift, boots filled with rags for the fallen, a star added to the chart. Sexism slings rebound. VVS commendations laced with brave for beginners, but the witches wear them like spurs. Another sortie, the whoosh now familiar as breath. Nadia glides over a fuel dump, bombs birthing infernos that silhouette panzers in panic. Below, a German gunner, young, from the Rhine's mist, jerks awake to the hiss, eyes wide as the first bloom engulfs his world. Devilish dames, he scribbles later, hand trembling, their crates creak the fear from our bones. The biplane, outdated no more, births a myth. Fragile frames ferrying ferocity, sexist sneers silenced by the night's complicity. They are not just flyers, they are the hush's heralds, wings whispering war's unwritten verse. The crate that creaked in wind was about to carve fear from the void. The Volga's waters lap sullen at the city's corpse, a river of mercury reflecting the pyres that still smolder in the factory districts. Stalingrad, once a nexus of steel and Stalin's name, now a labyrinth of rubble where shadows breed like rats, crumbled walls etched with shrapnel graffiti, tank hulks frozen in balletic death throes, the air heavy with the char of 300,000 souls spent in the meat grinder. Paulus's 6th Army, once a spearhead of the Reich's stream, huddles in cellars, their panzers rusting on choked rails, supplies dwindling to the gnaw of hunger. By day, the Red Army's artillery thunders a requiem. By night, the sky belongs to the unseen. From a forward strip scarred by bomb craters, camouflaged under netting woven with birch limbs, the 588th stirs like a coven rousing from slumber. Po-2s, their plywood fuselages scarred with the lace of prior raids, huddle under the netting's veil, engines pre-warmed in sand-ringed fires that spit embers into the gloaming. The women emerge from slit trenches, faces smudged with camouflage cream, eyes ring dark as the void they court, flight jackets zipped against the steppes slide chill. Nadezhda Popova leads her pair, number 7, trailing the scent of fresh dope from Irina's dawn repairs, a jagged flak tear mended with linen and lies to the brass about training mishaps. The summer nights are shorter now, velvet cloaks rent by the moon's reluctant rise, but the witches adapt. Sorties stretch to 15, then 18 per eve, a relentless tick of the clockwork that grinds German repose to dust. Bershanskaya's orders crackle over field phones, rail heads east of the Oksai, fuel dumps at Gumrak. No mercy in the hush. The commander, her tent a nexus of maps thumbtacked with cigarette burns, paces with the ghost of Raskova at her shoulder. The founder's letters, yellowed as autumn leaves, urging, silence is our sword, wield it till it sings. Bershanskaya, to the assembled crews, voice a low burn under the stars. Stalingrad's embers call us sisters. They've held the day with blood, we claim the night with breath. Glide low, drop true, let their tracers chase echoes. Return not whole, but unbroken. Nadia nods, harness biting into shoulders as she climbs the wing. Rufina Gasheva vaults aft, her star chart a crumpled oracle, fingers tracing the night's veins. Scorpius low, wind from the west at 15 knots. The engine coughs alive, a smoker's rasp muffled by Irina's baffle, tin silence to a kitten's purr. The squadron lifts in staggered pairs, 18 ghosts ascending sluggish over the Volga's gleam, climbing to 2,000 feet, where the air thins to a tonic of ozone and resolve. The formation scatters into the black, engines throttled to idle over the target approach. A marshalling yard 5 versts beyond the front's ragged seam. Boxcars bloated with 88mm shells and ersatz fuel. Lanterns dimmed to slits against partisan eyes. Below, Wehrmacht sentries pace frozen, their Mausers slung like weary lovers, breath pluming in the chill that seeps even through summer's skin. A lieutenant from Bavaria, diary open on his knee in a sandbagged nook, scribbles by flashlight. The steppe sleeps uneasy tonight. Rumors of rusky nightbirds, wooden crates crewed by she-devils. Bah, propaganda to fray nerves already threadbare. Nadia's Po-2 ghosts in first, throttle eased at the glide point. The propeller stutters, windmills to halt, silence blooms, profound as a held breath in church. The whoosh descends, brooms sweep through dead air, canvas fluttering like prayer hymns, wires keening a faint, spectral hymn. At 600 feet, the stall horn hisses, witches whisper, then quiets as the nose dips, earth rising reluctant from the dark. Rails glinting silver, guards' fires winking like sinful eyes. Rufina, hushed through the tube, drifts sight a brass gleam. Target locked, cars at 10 o'clock. Flak blind spots to starboard. Steady, bombs in 5. Latches spring with a clunk soft as a lover's sigh. Payloads tumble, 6 Fab 100s. Incendiaries nested like viper's eggs. They kiss the void, vanishing into night. Seconds stretch, taut as bowstrings, then impact. Thuds muffled, followed by blooms of Armageddon. Orange fury erupts, boxcars birthing dragons that devour steel and shadow, secondary blasts chaining like dominoes of doom. Shells cook off in staccato fury, painting the underbelly of clouds with hell's palette. Sentries bolt, shouts fracturing the hush. Nachthexen, dihexen, as alarms wail belated, a siren's scorn. Chaos uncoils, flak batteries swivel blind, their FUMG radars groping at ghosts, pom-poms coughing tracers in green lace that stitches the sky. A burst whispers past number 7's wingtip, close enough to singe Nadia's scarf, the acrid tang of cordite invading the cockpit like an uninvited guest. The Po-2 bucks struts creaking protest, but Nadia's hands, gloved, steady as the dawn's current, nurse her through. Rudder left, stick forward into evasion's curl. Below, the lieutenant dives for cover, his diary smudged with mud, heart hammering the myth into marrow. They came silent, dropped hell, fled like smoke. Women? No. Furies from the frost. Engines reignite and sputter, the cough a defiant laugh, and the witches melt east, lace-holed, frost-rhymed, but laden with triumph's glow. One Po-2 trails smoke, navigator winged by shrapnel. She binds the gash mid-air with a scarf tourniquet, voice unbroken over the tube. Press on, sister. The night's not done claiming debts. Returns are bullet-laced ballets, wheels kissing cratered turf amid cheers from ground crews. Arenas wrench a blur as she tallies the toll. Struts splintered like matchwood, canvas ventilated like tea strainers. Frostbite claims toes in the chill of altitude, but fervor thaws it. Debriefs crackle with tales, maps updated with red slashes of success, rails kinked, dumps denied, the Sixth Army's belly growling emptier by moon. Months bleed into a crescendo. Stalingrad's siege broken, the witches redeploy south to the Taman salt marshes, where the Kerch Strait churns like a cauldron under Manstein's counterthrust. The peninsula juts defiant into the Black Sea, a dagger of mud and minefields where the Wehrmacht clings to Crimean dreams, their supply ferries dodging Red Navy wolves. Here the raids swell to fever, 1,000 missions in 125 nights, 18 sorties per crew per eve. A storm of silence that drowns the Luftwaffe's daytime roars. Po-2's ferry from primitive strips hacked from reed beds, bellies slung heavier with cluster bombs that scatter like malevolent confetti. Nadia, now an ace etched in 200 glides, flies lead in the van, her face leaner, eyes shadowed with the ghosts of fallen wingmates, 32 sisters claimed by Flak's kiss or the steppe's sly swallow. Rufina plots amid squalls, her charts sodden with spray, stars obscured by clouds that weep sleet like widows' tears. The glide over Taman is torment refined, winds gusting 40 knots off the Azov, whipping the open cockpit into frenzy, canvas cracking like musketry. Engines cut, the whoosh amplifies to a howl, broom sweep laced with brine, the metallic tang of sea and sulfur invading lungs. One eve, the crescendo peaks, target a pontoon bridge over the Kuban Delta, fuel barges moored like bloated ticks, guarded by 88s that snarl at shadows. The squadron, now 23 strong, replacements raw as spring onions, descends in waves, engines dying one by one into the gale. Below, German crews huddle in bunkers, morale melting like wax under the midnight sun. Letters home falter. The witches again, sleep is treason now. They drop not bombs, but dread. A Hauptmann in the 17th Army scribbles, unseen furies, outflying the stars. Our aces hunt eagles, these harpies haunt the hush. God, if he watches, averts his gaze. Nadia's Po-2 stoops first, Rufina's call a lifeline in the tube. Rufina bridge span at 12, barges clustered left. Flak heavy, hug the deck. The stall horn cackles, they skim reeds at 150 feet, waves cresting like whitecaps below. Bombs loosen a cascade, thuds birthing infernos that bridge the strait in flame, barges blooming pyres that silhouette sentries frozen in wide-eyed watch. Tracers erupt, a storm of jade fury. One rakes number 7's tail, splintering plywood in a spray of shards that pepper Nadia's neck like angry bees. The plane lurches, control cable severed. Hold her, hold, she wills, wrestling the stick with thighs clamped to the frame, rudder pedals slick with sweat. A sister ship plummets nearby, Larisa Litvinova's, flax bloom catching her mid-glide, the Po-2 folding like origami in fire, crew bailing into the marshes maw. Larisa's last transmission crackles. Larisa. For the stars, sisters, glide on. Nadia banks hard, engines sputtering rebirth, evading the net of lead that laces the dark. Returns are ragged. Half the squadron limps in, one wheels up in the shallows, crews waiting ashore mud-caked and murmuring prayers. Irina works through dawn, her bellows masking sobs, strut gone, prop nicked like a bad shave. But she flies tomorrow, mark me. The revelation whispers insidious. Wehrmacht morale fractures like thin ice. Logs lament Nachthexen, awards proffered for downing one, iron crosses pinned on chests that tremble at the whoosh. Sentries double, nerves frayed to harp strings, panzer crews curse the dark, sleep stolen by the glide's ghost. Partisans wire tallies, bridges burned, crossings choked, the Taman siege cracking under the weight of whispers. Stalin's decree renames them. 46th Guards Taman Night Bomber Regiment, gold stars glinting on tunics like captured stars. But the women wear no medals yet, only the frost of altitude, the flutter of canvas kin. The storm breaks, rain drums canvas like impatient fingers. Nadia and Rufina huddle over tea gone cold, Larisa's flight log open between them, her final plot a half-scribbled arc to Polaris. Silence reigns, heavy as unshed tears, broken only by the distant surf's sigh. Nadia, tracing the arc, voice threaded with frost. She heard the whoosh to the end. We all do, don't we? The night's heart, beating back. Rufina nods, hand on Nadia's, sisterhood solder binding fractures. Outside, Bershanskaya tallies the night's toll. 18 sorties, 14 hits, 2 planes salvaged from the drink. The crescendo hums on, morales melt seeping into the Reich's resolve, the wide-eyed watch yielding to wakeful dread. It didn't thunder when it fell. It simply sowed the seeds of sleepless dread. The Reich's heart stutters its last, a colossus felled by its own shadows. Berlin sprawls below in cataclysmic surrender. The Reichstag, a gutted shell, its dome pocked with Soviet stars, streets choked with rubble like the bones of a devoured dream, T-34s prowling past swastika banners limp as drowned flags. The Luftwaffe's remnants, gaunt FW-190s, fuel-starved and frantic, scramble from Tempelhof's craters, but the sky is no longer theirs. It belongs to the victor's roar. Yak-9s slicing the dawn, Il-2s droning low over the spree, their cannons stitching final obsequies into the Wehrmacht's white flags. Smoke coils from the Chancellery's pyre, where Führer's ghost dissipates in the wind's indifferent sigh. The air hums with the tang of spent cordite and the faint, floral rot of spring asserting itself over slaughter, lilacs blooming defiant amid the char. High above, in the thinning veil of night yielding to day, a final formation ghosts eastward. Po-2s of the 46th Guards, their plywood frames lace-scarred relics, bellies light for the homeward leg. No bombs tonight. Only the weight of 3 years' whispers, 23,000 sorties etched in the struts like invisible runes, 3,000 tons of fury dropped in the dark's discreet embrace. Nadezhda Popova, 23 now, and hollowed by loss, eases the stick of number 7, her hands, scarred from frost and fleck, steady as the Volga's ancient flow. Beside her in spirit, Rufina Gasheva charts the return, her drift sight stowed, eyes tracing the horizon where the sun bleeds gold over the Elbe. 32 sisters lost, to the stall's sly betrayal, to the pom-pom's bite, to the stepp's silent swallow. Larissa's ghost among them, her final arc to Polaris a lodestar in Nadia's dreams. The engines sputter as a lullaby now, the whoosh of wind over wires a farewell caress. Below, Red Army columns snake homeward, truck beds heaped with looted typewriters and tarnished eagles, soldiers' faces gaunt with the war's gauntlet, but eyes alight with the audacity of the unbroken. Partisans wave from birch groves, their rags embroidered with tales of the Nachthexen, the witches who seeded paranoia in panzer hearts, who turned Goering's supply lines to ash altars. A diarist from the Ninth Army, captured near the Oder, had confessed in broken Russian, they were the devil's daughters, silent, ceaseless. We'd rather face 1,000 T-34s than one whoosh in the dark. Nadia, through the tube, voice soft as thawing snow. It's over, Rufina. The hush, it won, but listen, the world's waking. What now, for broomstick brides? Rufina leans forward, scarf loose around a neck corded with veins like river maps, her Leningrad pallor gilded by dawn. She has plotted not just skies but survivals. 200 missions, stars her confessor, spite her sextant, a smile in her whisper, laced with the salt of unshed tears. Now, we land, sister. Plant the whoosh in soil that remembers. Gardens, perhaps, bombs to blooms, but the night, it keeps our wings. The squadron descends in loose V, wings catching the first light like prisms of frost. Engels awaits, its runways rutted with memory, tents sagging under the weight of peace's awkward hush. Bershanskaya's signal flare arcs lazy, red for return, a ruby's glow against the paling stars. Sun shafts pierce the canvas like accusatory fingers, illuminating maps yellowed as old skin, pins clustered over the front's healed scars. Stalingrad a faded scar, Taman a triumphant tattoo. Yevdokiya Bershanskaya stands at the trestle table, her iron star dulled by dust, frame slimmer than the war's whetstone allowed. At 37, she is the anvil's echo, molder of marauders, now midwife to myth. The regiment assembles, 150 souls, replacements woven into the weave, faces a mosaic of frostbite and firelight. Irina Sevastianova slouches in back, wrench idle in her lap, her broad hands, once coaxing engines from death, now cradling a samovar's steam like a lost lover's breath. A courier enters, boots polished for the first time in years, bearing a velvet case from the Kremlin. Stalin's seal gleams, unyielding as the man of steel's gaze. The general pins them one by one, 23 gold stars, heroes of the Soviet Union, glinting on tunics like captured moonlight. Nadia accepts hers with a bow, the weight feather light against her chest, for Dmitri's ghost, for the village's cinders, for the glides that ghosted empires. Rufina's follows, her fingers tracing the hammer and sickle as if reading Braille fate. Bershanskaya pins her own last, the metal cold as a winter stall. Bershanskaya, steady but cracking at the edges like thin ice sisters, the veil lifts, not with trumpets, but with the quiet of dawn after storm. You flew what others feared, plywood into panzers, silence into siege. The Wehrmacht trembled not at your bombs, but at your becoming. Women unbound, knight's daughters dropping doubt like dead weight. 23 stars for 32 fallen. The rest, worn in the whoosh you carry home. Murmurs swell, a tide of awe and ache. Embraces fierce as harnesses, tears tracing paths through grease and grime. Irina rises, her bellow softened to a bard's ballad. Raising a tin mug of kvass, eyes wet as Yenisei fog. To the crates that creaked us kin. To Raskova's fire, though it guttered too soon. We didn't just bomb the Reich, we bewitched the war's weary soul. Says Dorovia, which is eternal. The toast ripples, mugs clinking like distant flak. But the honor's hush carries undercurrents. Whispers of the cost, the sisters whose stars burn only in memory. Larissa's logbook passes hand to hand, her sketches, potus with besoms for tales, smudged but sacred. Outside, mechanics mothball the fleet. Potus taxied to sheds, wings folded like weary arms, fuselages draped in dust sheets scented with varnish and victory. Irina lingers last, patting number 7's nose like a faithful hound. Irina, to the plain, low as a lover's leave. Sleep now, old crone, you've swept enough shadows. Snow swirls like ash from an unquiet urn, the Ural's wind keening a widow's wail over the fresh mound. Marina Raskova lies beneath it, 30 years snuffed by a P2's stall over the Volga. Icing in a blizzard sortie, her navigator's call lost to static, the crash a muffled thud in the white. The regiment, mid-training at Engels, converges in borrowed trucks, faces pale as the linen they fly. Raskova, the founding fury, Trans-Siberian trailblazer, Stalin's sparrow who shamed the skeptics, gone before her witch's first whoosh over the front. Her appeal of 41 echoes in the eulogy. Give us plains, we'll give you hell. Now, hell delivered, but without her to witness the harvest. Nadia kneels at the grave, gloved hand pressing soil still warm from the fall, her brother's ghost mingling with this new one. You stitched us wings, she thinks, from spite and stars. We'll glide your grave to glory. Bershanskaya speaks over the casket's echo, voice armored but aching. Bershkaya, to the huddled forms, snow lacing her lashes. She fell mid-flame, but her fall fuels us. No tears for defeat, only for the fire she kindled. Fly fierce for Marina, let the night claim her as kin. The regiment salutes, heels crunching crust, then disperses to the skies, glides sharper for the sting, whooshes whispering her name. Raskova's fall, a pivot in the saga. Desperation to defiance, her shadow lengthening over Taman's pyres, Berlin's broken spires. Post-war thaw yields to chill. The 46th disbands in 45's hush scattered to factories and farms, gold stars tucked into cedar chests like secrets too sharp for daylight. Nadia marries a test pilot, bears daughters who inherit her green gaze, but flies crop dusters over the dawn till rotors claim her in 78, her quip to the end. We flew like witches, they died like fools. Rufina charts polar routes for Aeroflot, her star charts yellowing in attics, dying in 2012 with a mapmaker's grace. Bershanskaya commands airfields till 72, her iron star polished for parades, passing in quiet as Siberian pines. Irina forges tractors in the Urals, her wrench traded for a pen that pens memoirs none dare print. Soviet shadows reclaim them, textbooks footnote the Nachthexen as support units, sexism's sly erasure, brave auxiliaries, not breakers of sieges. But the legend simmers underground. Samizdat tales whispered in kitchens, folk ballads sung in dakas of broomstick brides who bewitched the bear. German POWs repatriated to the Rhine's regrets murmur in beer halls. The Rusky witches, unseen, unending. Their silence scarred deeper than Stuka's. The city pulses neon-veined, Stalin's ghost dwarfed by glass spires that pierced the polluted stars. A documentary screening in a basement theater. Grainy footage of Po2 glides, interviews flickering like fireflies. Nadezhda Popova, 91 and frail as frost lace, sits front row, her gold star pinned to a shawl woven with memories. The interviewer leans in, microphone trembling. Nadezhda Vasilyevna, the Nachthexen, you flew 852 missions. How? In those crates against the flak. Nadia's eyes still green as the dawn's defiant meadows, distant for a beat, then sharpen, a glide resuming. Voice a rustle of canvas in wind, defiant to the dregs. How? With spite, young one. They razed my home, slew my brother. We cut engines to amplify vengeance, the whoosh louder than their roars. We bombed till they cursed our name. Nachthexen. Let them. We were the night's rebellion, proving fragile frames forged the fiercest storms. The audience hushes, a collective breath held. Clips roll. Raskova's 38 takeoff, biplanes whooshing over Taman's flames, women's laughter crackling intense aglow. Post-Soviet resurrection. Films like Night Witches in the Sky, 1981. Novels unearthing the saga. Monuments in Engels. A bronze Po2, wings spread eternal, inscribed to the daughters of the dark. Folklore ferments. Children's tales of star-guided specters, feminist tracts hailing the sisterhood that subverted steel with silence. International echoes, Western docs dubbed them Soviet suffragettes of the stratosphere. Mark Felton narrations peeling the veil for YouTube thirsters, Yarn Hub animations whooshing the glide into viral myth. Nadia rises slow, aided by a grandniece, the theater applauding like thunder hushed. Outside, Moscow's lights mimic the tracers they outflew, lace without the bite. Nadia to the night as cameras fade. We dropped not just bombs, we dropped the veil of doubt. Stealth doesn't scream, it sweeps you into myth. In war, the fiercest storm isn't steel, it's the silence of sisters unbound. The steppe reclaims its own, Runways cracked to wildflower veins, hangars husks haunted by wind's low moan. A lone birch leans over the old strip, roots delving where Po-2 wheels once kissed earth. Tourists wander, history aficionados in cargo vests, phones capturing the hush, pilgrims to the untold grit. A plaque gleams, 588th Night Bomber Regiment, 23,000 sorties. The night owned us, we owned the fear. The sun dips, painting the horizon in Raskova's crimson. Somewhere, a breeze stirs, faint, fleeting, the ghost of a whoosh, brooms sweep through the gathering dark. The moon rises, silver and sly, bending not to men's decrees but to the will of witches who whispered thrones to ruin. They thought the skies bowed to men, but the moon bends to witches' will. In the hush of history, their legacy lingers, a flutter of canvas against forgotten gales, frost-kissed laughter in canvas tents, the metallic tang of incendiaries birthing pyres from the black. The night witches didn't conquer with clamor, they claimed with caress. From Stalingrad's embers to Berlin's broken spires, they proved, women's whispers can topple thrones. If you believe women's whispers can topple thrones, subscribe for more Untold World War II Flights of Forgotten Fire.